Welcome to Conversations with Chuck Hester, a weekly podcast designed to inform and entertain you and introduce you to some really interesting and inspiring people. I'm your host, Chuck Hester, and my guest today is one of my favorite people, and that's Jennifer Radke. Jen is the CEO of the National Institute for Social Media, the premier destination for social media professional development and education. Her firm partners with organizations and lifelong learning enthusiasts to create a community for professional development and to set the standards for social media education, assessment and certification, and consulting. Welcome to the show, Jen.
Thanks, Chuck. It's exciting to be here.
Yeah. You and I, and we'll get into this a little later, but Jen is part of the Pay It Forward Tuesdays organization, and you and I have conversations on a regular basis, but it's really fun to be able to have this conversation with you just in general about what you do, as you like to say, during your day job, and being able to talk about that. Now, and I mentioned this earlier, that one of the things that I always like to talk about with my guests is the origin story and where you come from. So give us some background of, how you got into marketing and education, that type of thing. So take it away. We'd love to hear what you've got going on.
Yeah, so my origin or transformation kind of story is not dissimilar to a lot of people in marketing and social media. There's a woven path, not a straight line. When I left college, I started out working in higher education. I was an admissions representative for many years, worked in higher ed, worked up to the point where I was actually managing 19 campus locations across the country, loving helping students reach their dream of becoming educated in their specific area of expertise. In 2012, I had the opportunity to kind of step back, stop traveling so much. I had young kids at home. So I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, or when I grew up, as I used to say. And then I realized that I'm still not quite grown up. So I'm not sure if I should say that anymore. But I took some time, looked around, had the opportunity to meet a really interesting young gentleman who founded the National Institute for Social Media. We're actually going to be celebrating our 10th anniversary in November of this year.
Wow.
So I met him, started working with the organization, was really intrigued by what they were doing in social media marketing and education. I got certified as a social media strategist, certified as an educator, and then through kind of that evolution realized, what I really love to do is help people learn and grow, right? So I actually left the organization, started my own company called Socially Inspired, where I was doing social sales training, mostly working with organizations to really equip their sales team to better communicate with their consumers. And then in 2016, I had the opportunity to return to NISM, take over as CEO and now owner. So that's kind of been my journey.
Yeah. Awesome. So you're talking about National Institute for Social Media. So describe your charter, what you do, how you help your clients.
Yeah. So what we are is an industry standardized certification for social media strategists or professionals working in marketing, social media communications. What that means is we have an exam. People can take the exam. If they pass, they earn a credential. Right? Because it's a certification, there's continuing education that's involved in staying current and relevant, which is super important in the social media world. So we kind of facilitate that whole learning, assessment, and then ongoing growth. I absolutely love the community and building the resources that we have and helping people kind of find what they're looking for. Social media is so huge that having a place to go, to stop and think about strategy, what's right for your audience and for your community, and then take the next steps in learning how to get there is really a great place to be. And I love being in the middle of that.
Excellent. And I know, because we talked about this, you also do seminars on a
Mhm.
regular basis. And so, and I'm going to put this up for you right now. So this is your webinars link there for
Mhm.
nismonline.org, where you can go find out more information. But describe it, because I know you've got about 5 or 6 over the next couple of months coming up. So describe a couple of them for us as to what that is and what people can expect.
Yeah, absolutely. So our webinars are actually part of the continuing education process, but they're open to anyone, internal National Institute for Social Media professionals, as well as external marketing communications professionals. We really just want to help people learn and grow. We typically do twice a month webinars. Over the summer, we tend to do a little bit less. The next one coming up later here in July is actually a case study on TikTok and how a nonprofit, Be the Match, has used that platform to really reach out to its consumers. And we have a super exciting guest, Ryan Pena, who's going to be talking with us about that situation and how they've used that platform to grow. We also do things like SEO versus SEM coming up, I think, in October. So we've got a great variety of all things marketing and social media related.
That's great. So obviously the subject is social media, and
Mhm.
you've been at it probably as long as I have. I mean, I started in social media back in 2001, 2002 timeframe, and actually got my rather large corporate job through LinkedIn. Back then, it was so unusual that I was written up along with somebody else in the New York Times about, hey, this great new platform called LinkedIn, and people get jobs in it, those type of things. But obviously, things have evolved over the last
Mhm.
10, golly, now we're going on almost 20 years in the process of doing that. What's the evolution that you've seen in social media? How are things changed from when you first started out? What was your social platform that you were using for higher ed, for instance?
Yeah, so it's such a great question, and it's been really fun to watch that transformation take place. For me personally, it was LinkedIn as well. I think I joined that platform in 2006. At the time in higher ed, we were not allowed to use it for any purpose other than recruiting employees. So, not student recruitment or communication for our student communities. It was all around talent acquisition. I've seen that dramatically change. The National Institute is proud to support Higher Ed Social, which is a whole another association of folks who work in social media for colleges and universities or higher ed institutions across the globe. And I've watched that transformation amplified with COVID and all of the different situations that we've experienced in the last 18 months, really kind of push social to the forefront because that was the way that they had to communicate. So that transformation of movement of, okay, here you can only do this, to, okay, now we have to push everything out via social has been eye-opening and sometimes done really well and sometimes unfortunately not, because we're still trying to communicate as if social media is a broadcast platform and it really is meant to be a conversational, engaging platform. So there's still some learning curves. But we've also seen the advent of things like TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram come in these years that we've started, and the different ways, Clubhouse, right? The different ways that people are engaging with folks online, almost to the point of overwhelm for a lot of people, right? Not knowing where to be and how to spend their time. And making that choice between where is my audience and then what is the best return for me to spend time on a specific platform engaging with my audience. So I think strategy is going to continue to be an important conversation to have because the tactics change every day, but really stopping and making sure that we're focused on the right path for our organization or even for our personal brands is extremely valuable.
So, I mean, and you don't have to answer this question, but it's a regular question that comes up. You mentioned some things work, some things don't. Can you give some examples of great social media strategies that have worked really well and ones that have failed? Are you willing to do that?
So I think I'll do it in a more broad conversation, just because I kind of hate pulling out specific people or brands. The ones that are doing a great job are the ones who are thoughtful about the needs of their audience, and their audience comes before their own needs. So for example, and I'll just be very broad stroke here. I tend to pick on real estate agents a lot because we do see this, right? So an agent who constantly posts, or a company who constantly posts about, come to my open house, I have this house for sale, come to my open house, buy this house, right? It's boring, it's repetitious, and it's very, very ineffective. It doesn't help the people who might be searching to really understand the benefits of working with you as an agent, right? The ones who are more effective are the ones who are thinking about those questions that those home buyers really have. Are they a first-time home buyer, or are they somebody who's trying to downsize? What information is most valuable to them, and how can you share it? And so giving them resources, building that trust, having that communication is a lot more effective than just sharing what house you have for sale today, right? I think that's really important. Another example of things not done super well is avoiding conflict in social, specifically as it relates to customer service or customer experience. A lot of brands have just gone the way of, I am going to ignore anything that isn't positive and never respond to my audience. And unfortunately, what that does is it frustrates the consumer who is already upset about something that's not working. And it also shows other people that you don't care about your community. You're not willing to have a conversation about what's working and what's not working. So if you're going to be on social, be ready for both. Be prepared for the positive and the negative, and improve and constantly get better.
So, I mean, you mentioned the 18 months, and we know what we're talking about when we say that. I mean, that's everybody in COVID. And there is a start of return to work, return to open up a little bit, hybrid work, what that's going to look like. How has COVID affected social media and marketing in general over the last 18 months? What changes have you seen in that regard?
Oh, that is a huge question. For most of us, remote work was the biggest change. And you kind of alluded to that already. We were forced out of what was our comfort zone into our homes to try to balance what's going on in our home settings, as well as what we need to do in our offices. A lot of people struggled through the communications channels for approval, for creation of content. So for example, organizations that used to just go out their office and shoot a quick picture of something that was on their campus or on their organization's building, they no longer had that opportunity. They had to find new ways and creative ways to kind of reinvent the content that was putting out there. I think prior to COVID, there had been some conversation about crisis management and how do we respond to certain situations. And I think the organizations that deal with natural disasters, like hurricanes that are, dealing with, Florida's dealing with Elsa right now, they were a little bit more prepared for, okay, here's how we communicate things quickly so that people are informed. Those organizations that didn't talk about that had a really eye-opening and kind of like facepalm experience, because they didn't know where to go or where to start or how fast they needed to move. And so a lot of that evolution has happened. Now we've gotten a lot more creative, and I think that's been a good thing that's come out of this. We've had people really embrace the opportunity to kind of work outside of their box. On the bad side, social media professionals are struggling with self-care. They've taken now their work home with them in a way that they never had to before. And it's become even more 24/7. And we need to really remember there is a human being behind the social platforms who are trying to assist you, and not attack them, or try to take out all of our world's frustrations on one individual.
Yeah, and one of our themes on a regular basis is self-care, mental health, making sure that you appreciate the other people that you're working with, and where that goes. So greatly appreciate that you brought that up as well. So my path was a journalism graduate from University of Southern California, and started out as a journalist and then worked into marketing, PR, and this thing called social media came along. So I kind of adapted to that as a social media marketer, LinkedIn expert. But so today, someone's graduating. I know you've got a son that's looking at colleges right now, but it's someone who's in college and saying, hey, this social media thing, I think I want to do this for a living. What are your recommendations on how to follow that path, and what's the best way to do that?
I don't necessarily jump straight into go get a degree in social media. There is a lot more to business today, and understanding how that works, that I really encourage folks to do some exploration around business administration, communications, marketing, maybe even international business, depending on the type of industry they're wanting to get into. Yes, there are social media classes being offered now at a lot of colleges and universities, so definitely kind of dip your toe into some of those things and learn what's out there. But make sure that as you're reaching out to really build your educational foundation, that you're getting a good foundation that's solid across industry and across kind of those organizational silos that we see, so that you're not just thinking from a sales lens or a customer service lens, but you understand the business objectives as a whole. The second or follow-up piece to that for me is when the time is right, and for us, it's usually about 3 years or so of experience, seek an industry certification like the Social Media Strategist certification from the National Institute. That not only assesses what you've learned so far and how you can apply that to your business world, but it also requires ongoing continuing education. So many of us get kind of stuck in the routine of our job that we forget to stop and learn something new. Certifications require that, right? That we continually learn, and you have to in social media marketing and communications today.
Yeah, and I've had a chance to speak at one of your webinars as well. The interesting part that I took away from all of that was that the NISM has really got a community that's active, and they're involved with each other. They support each other. Our social media marketing person for Pay It Forward Tuesdays, and I'm transitioning a little bit into talking about that in a minute, came from your community as well. So important to see. And the other thing, and this is kind of the transition here, Jen, we'll get into what I call reverse mentoring, meaning that I learned just as much from a 25-year-old who knows TikTok better than I do. And he may learn more from me on LinkedIn. I mean, that's kind of the way that works. So, and then let's get into our favorite subject, quite frankly, which is payitforwardtuesdays.org. Normally, that's a wrap up after you give the three takeaways that you've got, but we'll put this in the middle this time, kind of I don't know, mix it up a little bit, if you will. So I normally would do this, Jim, but I'm going to ask you to do this. This is payitforwardtuesdays.org. Take a minute and describe to somebody who has no clue what Pay It Forward Tuesdays is and what it's all about. How about that?
That is so fun. I'm excited to do this. Okay, so Pay It Forward Tuesdays was started by Chuck and Adam Sinkus in December of 2020 as a way to kind of just give back to other business professionals who really could use or value knowledge, connection, networking. And I was super excited to jump on that board and say, I want to help. And so what we do now is we take nominations. So if you're somebody who knows of an entrepreneur, a small business owner, a nonprofit who could use some mentoring, some coaching, some additional knowledge or skills, especially as it relates to marketing, communications, PR aspect of their business and some business strategy, send nominations through to the payitforwardtuesdays.org website. We take nominations every month, and then one winner is selected, and that winner gets private coaching, half an hour with each of our 5 professionals that are offering that up. And I'll be honest, I think most of us are given more than our half an hour, but that's what they're told they're going to get. As well as we really try to lift them up and their organization and help them be seen and recognized by more folks out there. So it is an amazing opportunity to give to someone else and help them get better at what they're trying to do with this world.
Yeah, and it's fascinating too, and you mentioned it, I was going to bring it up. We never just do 30 minutes. I mean, there's no doubt. You know, I get the end of my 30-minute sessions with people and like, okay, we're going to have to do another session. There's no doubt about it. We have more information. But not only that, and Adam and I, when we first developed this, we did in December, we did 4 once a week, which was crazy at the time if you look back at it. But by the time we're done, we'll have done 16 different organizations, nonprofits, and up-and-coming entrepreneurs. But one of the requirements, if you will, of those folks who are picked as our winner is they are then part of the alumni circle. Mm-hmm. And that alumni organization is starting to really flourish. There's a lot of cool people that are talking back and forth to each other, supporting each other as far as that goes. So it's really a lot of fun. And the other thing I want to mention too is the nomination doesn't have to be from another organization. You could nominate yourself.
You could.
Whether you're an up-and-coming entrepreneur or a 501c3, go on to payitforwardtuesdays.org. Give us the reasons why you think you would be a good nominee, if you will, and how we can possibly help you. And to even break it down a little further, we have probably one of the best, if not the best, PR guys in the country, and that's Bob Shears, who works with Cabot Cheese and Duracell and several others. I mean, this guy, talk about devotion to Pay It Forward Tuesdays. I mean, this guy develops PowerPoint presentations that he uses for his mentoring. So, he's actively involved. And by the way, we need to shout him out because tomorrow is Bob's 65th birthday. So if you're listening, Bob, he probably isn't because I think he's traveling right now. But anyway, long story short, great guy there. A guy named Brian Basilica, who is a really good sales guy and knows a lot of stuff. And that's one of the people you get on the phone and you're not going to have 30 minutes with him because he just can't do 30 minutes. He's not capable. Adam Sinkus with website design and development, and you with all of the social media skills that you've got going on, and obviously me with LinkedIn. I'm just fascinated to watch, and I'm sure you have seen this as well. People who have been our past winners who are just killing it on LinkedIn now. Thea Wood's a good example with the music foundation that she's got, and Lindsay Sutherland Bowl, who, by the way, if you ever want to connect with somebody because you're depressed and you want to talk to somebody and can get out of it, that would be Lindsay. But she's walking across Canada we're talking about 4,500 miles across Canada for sobriety, and that goes. So, tell you what, Jen, we will circle back around on that. But if you could give 3 takeaways for my audience as to what you want them to get, and by the way, you're the type of person, and the reason that you're one of the Pay It Forward 5, it's really 6 because I've got a guy that says, yeah, I'm not really, but I am, my operations guy, Jeff. But anyway, long story short, you're the type of person, I know for a fact, I don't even say, how do I get in touch with you? I mean, there's a wide variety of ways to do that, and that can be all over the place. So be able to do that. Anyway, long story short, 3 takeaways for our audience from what we talked about today. Yeah.
So we've talked about some good stuff. I think I'm going to start with 1, which is never stop learning. I don't care if you're a social media professional or not. Always learn. Learn something new. What's happening in your industry? What's changing? What could be better, right? So always keep learning. Number 2, network. Get to know people. Learn from them. Like Chuck was talking about the reverse mentoring. It's a powerful example of how business can be done and be more effective. And then number 3, Social media is here to stay. So if it is playing any part in your organization, make sure you're valuing the folks who are doing that for you, giving them the needed time that they need to rest and self-care.
Excellent, Jen. And of course, greatly appreciate what you've done and continue to do for your organization and for payitforwardtuesdays.org, which is one of our favorites. So I greatly appreciate you taking the time today.
I appreciate it, Chuck. It's been fun.
Absolutely. So believe it or not, this is another edition of the Conversations with Chuck Hester. We've done our Pay It Forward Minute, but I would be remiss if I didn't add a couple of things in that, and that is shout outs to our Pay It Forward. I call them 6. Adam Sinkus, of course, Jen Radke, Bob Shears, Brian Basilico, and Jeff Poche. And we are pleased to announce our June recipient, Devora Fish, and her organization Up in the Chair, which is a global movement to encourage the practice of intentional inclusion. We want to celebrate her dedication to the greater cause that each person be seen and heard for their unique contribution to humanity. And as we mentioned earlier, we are now accepting nominations for July for yourself or for an organization you know. So visit payitforwardtuesdays.org for more information. And if you're a company organization that provides products and services to the small business and entrepreneurial community, we are looking for sponsors to provide services and products in kind for our 2021 recipients. Great way to pay it forward while building brand equity in your community. You can contact me for details on that. And along the higher education theme, my guest next week on July 24th is Stephanie Geyer, Director of Digital Strategy and Innovation at the University of Montana. We'll be talking all about digital marketing in higher education. So please feel free to share this podcast with your friends and connections. The replay will post very soon on Facebook and YouTube. Also through Anchor FM, the audio of the podcast will be found on Google Podcast, Spotify, and many other channels. Well, that's it for this week. I want to take a quick personal note, and I'm dedicating this show to my uncle, Bill McCrory. He was the Voice of America news anchor in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, who passed away this week at the age of 99. So I hope I'll make that as well. Uncle Bill was the inspiration for my communications career. So until next time, this is Chuck Hester reminding you to stay well, stay connected, and always pay it forward.